Nowadays, it seems as if everything is about Donald Trump. We're inundated with news about his latest speech, and we see his image and hear his voice over and over on TV as numerous analysts discuss his every word and action. Even during the holiday season, the news is often revolved around him. Either Trump is proclaiming that he had saved Christmas by bringing back the words Merry Christmas, or we see traditional fireworks displays that we all love somehow ending up spelling out the name of Trump. Now even the stock market will begin to be a constant reminder of Trump, as his new company, Trump Media and Technology Group, will trade under the ticker DJT, initials for Donald John Trump. But perhaps the strangest thing about how ubiquitous Trump's name is in 2024 is that in many ways he has always been here just beneath the surface. There are numerous examples of a man named Trump being mentioned in books and movies, sometimes from over a century ago, as well as a number of odd facts that surround Trump going back many decades, including how the number 666 seems to follow him around. For those of you who are new to my channel, about 3 years ago I did a video which covered some of the strange facts surrounding Trump and the odd way his name kept appearing in media over the years. Although the word coincidence might apply to some of these, others are simply unnerving. Here are a few highlights from that old video, and there's a link up top if you wish to watch the full version, which dealt with many of the odd facts surrounding Trump. Number 1. As most people know, Trump's mother is named Mary Ann McLeod, and his father is named Frederick Christ Trump, so Donald's parents are named Mary and Christ. Number 2. Going way back to 1874, there was an anonymously authored book called The Odd Trump, which had as its hero a man named Trump. What's so strange about this book? Well, it seems like this particular Trump had a friend and sometimes rival who was named Clinton. Number 3. In 1889, we find a children's book called Travels and Adventures of Little Baron Trump, which was written by a gentleman named Ingersoll Lockwood. Lockwood also penned a sequel in 1893, which was entitled Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey. According to Wikipedia, these two novels recount the adventures of the German boy Wilhelm Heinrich Sebastian von Trump, who goes by Baron Trump, as he discovers weird underground civilizations, offends the natives, flees from his entanglements with local women, and repeats this pattern until arriving back home at Castle Trump. On the surface, it's simply an odd coincidence that Donald Trump has a son named Baron, and these books talk about a little boy named Baron Trump. But that's not the weird part. Just like Donald J. Trump, the Baron Trump of these novels often mentions his massive brain. Sound familiar? Plus, he has a personalized insult for most people he meets. Does that also sound familiar? Even stranger, this Baron Trump lives in a building named after himself called Castle Trump. The real-life Donald Trump owned a casino named Trump Castle, and for years lived in another building named, for himself, Trump Tower. Number 4. The author of these two books, Ingersoll Lockwood, didn't confine himself to children's books, however, as he also penned a dystopian novel called 1900 or The Last President. In this book, New York City is filled with protest following the shock victory of a populist candidate in the 1896 presidential election, one who brings about the downfall of the American Republic. Quoting from an article in Newsweek about this book, the story begins with a scene from a panicked New York City in early November, describing a state of uproar after the election of an enormously opposed outsider candidate. The entire East Side is in a state of uproar, the article continues. Mobs of vast size are organizing under the lead of anarchists and socialists and threaten to plunder and despoil the houses of the rich who have wronged and oppressed them for so many years. The Fifth Avenue Hotel will be the first to feel the fury of the mob, the novel continues, citing an address in New York City where Trump Tower now stands. Would the troops be in time to save it, the novel asks. Number 5. This one could almost be its own video, But in the 1976 movie The Omen, the Antichrist is named Damien Thorn. Through this movie and its sequels, we learn there are many odd coincidences about Antichrist Damien Thorn and Donald J. Trump. Here are just a few of them. The DT initials, both with 6 letters in the first name and 5 in the last. The names of Damien and Donald both mean one who rules, dominates, or subdues. Both are liars and both brag about achieving great things. Both attended military academies. Both became incredibly rich via inheritances. Both turned their inheritances into vast multinational business enterprises and bought real estate all over the globe. Both had older brothers who died, allowing the younger sons to take over the family business. Damien Thorn takes over Thorn Industries in 1971. Donald Trump took over Trump Organization in 1971. Both rose to political power by lying and deceiving the masses. Both rallied legions of mesmerized followers. Both operated construction companies while in the White House. It's almost as if the Omen movies were written in advance about Donald J. Trump. Number 6. The 1989 movie Back to the Future 2 had a character named Biff Tannen, who was based on Donald Trump. In this sequel to the original 1985 blockbuster, Biff uses the profits from his towering casino to help shake up the Republican Party before eventually assuming political power himself. In what becomes a lawless dystopian wasteland, Biff encourages every citizen to call him America's greatest living folk hero. Number 7. The 1997 movie Devil's Advocate was a supernatural thriller that starred Al Pacino as none other than Satan himself. Some scenes in the movie were not sets built in some Hollywood studio, or even in hell, but in fact were filmed inside Donald Trump's penthouse at the Trump Tower. The Devil's Advocate indeed. Number 9. The Simpsons. In the year 2000, there was an episode called Bart to the Future, as a riff on the Back to the Future movies we just discussed. In Bart to the Future, Lisa becomes president. Her first order of business is to try to clean up the big mess left by the previous president. Who was that previous president? Why, Donald J. Trump, of course. Number 10. One of the more startling coincidences involving Trump is from an old TV show called Trackdown, which ran on CBS from 1957 to 1959. One episode during the 1958 season depicts a small western town full of frightened people who fear that disaster is about to befall them. Why do they believe this? Because a man named Walter Trump just came into town out of nowhere and claimed that a disaster was going to destroy that town, and only he had the power to stop it. How was he going to stop this disaster from happening? Why, Trump was going to build a wall, of course. Oh, and in case you couldn't guess, the title of this episode that starred Trump the Con Man was called The End of the World. Number 13. In 2017, the first year of the Trump presidency, the U.S. budget deficit widened to $666 billion. This is the only time in history that the U.S. budget deficit was in the amount of $666 billion. Number 14. On February 2nd, 2018, slightly more than 1 year into the Trump presidency, the stock market lost 666 points. This is the only time in history that the stock market lost 666 points. Number 15. Trump achieved 666 delegates on the Ides of March. The Ides of March, in case you don't know, is March 15th. As Shakespeare wrote, beware the Ides of March. Number 18. I mentioned the Omen movie a few minutes ago. In Omen 2, Damien Thorn's birth date is revealed to be June 6, 1966, which is, of course, 666. Well, guess what else happened on that date? June 6, 1966 just happens to be the exact date of the death of Donald Trump's grandmother, from which Donald inherited her estate. Her name was Elizabeth Christ Trump, and it was Elizabeth Christ Trump who incorporated the Trump family business that Donald Trump took over and ran after her death. Thus, Donald J. Trump became the heir of the Trump family business on the same day that the fictional Damien Thorn was born. Number 21. A blood moon happens when Earth's moon is in a total lunar eclipse. And in the Bible, blood moons are a harbinger or warning sign of terrible events to come. In fact, in the book of Acts, we read, "The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood before the coming of the great and awesome day of the Lord." Oh yeah, guess who was actually born on a blood moon? Yes, Donald J. Trump. Number 22. The name Donald means world ruler. Think of it as a powerful mafia don. The name Trump means to upstage, to outrank, or the triumph, but it also has a connotation of trickery, for instance, trumped up charges. Number 23. At the end of 2017, Trump decided to change the name of his Trump Soho Tower in downtown Manhattan. For a new name, he chose the Dominic, which means the Lord and Master. Number 29. Did you ever notice the strange physical resemblance between Donald Trump and Elron Hubbert? They just look like they could be cousins, or even brothers. Of course, one thing they have in common is being notorious liars, especially about their own accomplishments. In 1946, a few years before his Scientology days, Elron Hubbert took part in a series of magic rituals alongside a gentleman named Jack Parsons. Parsons was himself quite famous, being a rocket engineer from Caltech and one of the principal founders of the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. These two men conducted a series of occult rituals from January to March of 1946, rituals that were based on the ideas of Aleister Crowley. The purpose of these rituals was to reincarnate a goddess called Babylon, while other reports have the purpose as trying to bring about the Antichrist. The really weird part is that Hubbard apparently believed that an unborn fetus was so-called an empty vessel up until about the age of 3 months. During that time, it could be implanted with this Babylon spirit. And as of January 1946, the time when these occult rituals would have been taking place, guess what unborn baby would have been about 3 months old in the womb? That's right, none other than Donald J. Trump. Number 30. Nostradamus spoke of the false trumpet concealing madness that will change money and standards. He wrote, "The trumpet shakes with great discord, an agreement broken. The false message about the rigged election to run through the city, stopping the broken pact. Voices vault, chapel stained with blood, the empire contracted to another one." Number 31. In the 1980s, a Catholic man nicknamed the Hermit of Loro was so convinced that Donald Trump would one day become a great spiritual force in America that he wrote Trump's name on a brick and had it placed at the reconstruction of St. Peter's Holy Door after the Jubilee in order that Trump would receive blessings from the many masses that would be said inside the Vatican. Of course, exactly what spiritual force Donald Trump would be bringing to America is up for debate. Number 32. The Bible talks about 3 demons and likens them to frogs. Guess what symbols the alt-right chose to use in ritual magic in order to help Trump? Yep, Pepe the Frog and other frog-like symbols. Number 34. In August of 2016, a man named Stephen Rogata climbed Trump Tower and was subsequently caught about halfway up. Later, when asked why he did it, he said it has to do with when he becomes president, how he'll govern. This was 3 months before Trump officially won the election.